So if you've been watching car YouTube for a while, I bet you probably noticed some changes, mainly in the bigger companies like Donut Media, like Hoonigan, like Car Throttle. I think you've kind of sensed kind of a shift away from the norm. And I'm talking like back in the fun days, they'd do, well, as far as Donut would go, they'd go through and do like the D list and stuff like that. So much fun. Up to speeds, loved it. That's what really got me on a donut was the up to speeds. Loved it. Thought they were fantastic. And then they've been kind of shifting around. And I don't want to say they've been uninspired, but they've been, I don't know. Seems like they've been having less fun. So after all these videos have been coming out recently about people, quitting Donut Media. They've got people quitting Hoonigan. They've got people quitting Car Throttle. And it's all starting to make sense now. After watching some of those videos, they were complaining about, not complaining, that sounds bad. They were explaining why they were leaving. And a lot of the things they were saying was that, they're kind of tired of it being basically dictated on what they need to do. And it was kind of losing its soul because they were all three of them at different times. They were all bought out or sold. They use the word sold a lot, but they were bought out by a corporate entity. And that tends to happen with corporate. And I can kind of help explain why that happens. And before I go into that, I need to kind of explain to you how I know these things. It's kind of nice to know the person who's telling you these things, how they know. So my background is I have a bachelor's in healthcare administration. And in that schooling, we talked a lot about corporate buyouts, a lot about corporate structuring as far as buying private practices and things like that. And that relates directly to what's been going on with these different YouTube channels. And I know it sounds kind of odd, but the structure is exactly the same. And I say that because I was brought on as a consultant for a different company to help them get through a buyout. That process took a lot longer than it should have taken, about 6 to 8 months. And in the end, that company decided not to go with corporate, which happens a lot too. So I've seen these deals. I've seen them on paper. I've seen other people in the same city, in the same state go through these same issues. I've had many people in my same class for school. They're now, running these companies or managing these companies that then bought out the private practices, or in this situation, the smaller YouTube channels and whatnot. And I was even offered, a few different jobs for some larger companies in my sphere, to go manage these different practices in different states, which is exactly what we're talking about here. With these different YouTube channels selling out, they start to lose their identity. And, being this close to the corporate side of it, it happens almost every time. And what I mean by that is, I've seen situations in paperwork where people are saying, well, the big corporate office is saying, we're not going to deal with your little day-to-day stuff. You do you, and we'll just basically sit back. And the reason they do that is because they then buy out the owner for probably 2.5 times what that company's worth a year. So let's say the company's worth $1 million. Okay, the deal's going to be they're going to buy it from the owner for about $2.5–3 million, just for easy math. That's what we're going to say. And that owner is then going to collect a daily salary. And on top of that, this new corporation is then going to take over everything else that's going to be profit. So the people just walk in there, do their job, they go home. And they're told what to do the whole time. And I feel like that's what's happening now with these YouTube channels. And it was confirmed. I was watching the other, the donut guys, they left and did their own thing. They were talking about how they'd bring up ideas. And they would say, hey, there's this fun idea, let's do it. Shot down. Most of them were shot down. And that's the reason why they left, because they said, we're tired of these great ideas being shot down. We want to do what we want to do, which is why we came to go do donut in the first place. And I can't really speak that much for Hoonigan, but in this situation, the same thing has happened, where they are uninspired because they're being told what to do. And you've kind of noticed a rash of this happening, these videos coming out of people saying, this is why I left. This is why, this is so terrible. This is what's going on. This is why. Well, I looked into it, and in 2001, both Donut and Hoonigan were sold to obviously two different companies. Just the time frame wise, they line up 2021. Sorry, they were sold to these two different companies. Car Throttle was sold in 2019 and also in 2023. So theirs is a little bit different. But the reason why these dates are significant is because usually when these buyouts happen, these buyouts that I've seen on paper quite a lot, they usually do a 3 to 5 year non-compete. And that's going to mean that literally you can't do what you were doing before. If you choose to leave this deal for that 3 to 5 years, they usually have a certain radius, but that's with that's going to be with medical practices. So it doesn't really apply to YouTube. But I assume with how smart these companies are, these corporations are, they're going to set up a non-compete for a certain amount of years, 3 years, 5 years. With Donut and Hoonigan, that lines up. They were bought in 2021. It's now 2024. Their 3 years are pretty much up. They're non-compete. They're good to go. With Car Throttle, their original one, 2019, 5 years, 2024. That would explain that situation. I'm not sure if them being bought again in 2023 changed some things. I don't know. But I do know that with those dates lining up, 2021, the 3 year, if they choose to do 3 year, that explains why everybody's having these videos come out of them saying, oh, I'm leaving, because now they can talk about it and they can legally talk about it. I know that this year they did put out something where you can no longer do non-competes. They said it's now illegal to do, I think September of this year, 2024 is when it's actually legit and solid. But there are some stipulations, there are some grandfathered in clauses where if you signed a if your company, this is where it gets really tricky, if your company was bought by a larger corporation and you signed a non-compete with that larger corporation because you were purchased, then this rule does not apply to you. Otherwise, with the other people on, and I think this just is going to be applied to the higher ups at Donut, but I'm not quite sure. I haven't seen their paperwork for the buyout. There's no way that I could. But they did say that the executives, legally, that new law, the executives of the company that was bought out, this rule of no more non-competes does not apply to these executives. So we're going to see what's going to happen there. But like I said, this is going to be the 3 year for Donut and for Hoonigan. Coming up on the 5 year, I would assume that there's going to be more people leaving Donut, more people leaving Hoonigan on the higher up side, because then that's going to be that 5 year for the non-compete. I can see them getting, I don't want to say the lower tier. I don't want to say the lower tier people, but the people who are not on that top shelf upper crust. I bet they got locked in on the 5 year, and the people who were, I don't want to say less integral, but the people who are not on the top tier, I assume that they would have that 3 year, go 5 year, 3 year. These guys are out. They can now do their own stuff. That's why there's this rash of new videos, people leaving. I think that's kind of what's going on. So I just kind of want to give my take on what's happening. Once again, I haven't seen their paperwork. There's no way that I could see their paperwork, but I do this as part of my job. So I know kind of what they're thinking as far as the corporate structure goes, how they're doing this, why they're doing this. But I'm not sure on if they're going to let everybody else go in 2 more years at the 5 year mark or not. But basically they are now dictating that company since they own Donut, since they own Hoonigan, since they own Car Throttle. They're now saying, make these videos. I'm tired of you guys playing these cool history videos of this one certain car. It may be fun, doesn't bring in the money. I want you now to switch over and do these videos of these products. I want you to now do longer videos for sponsorships, like the whole thing with Nissan. With Donut and Nissan, their Nissan commercials are huge. They're so much longer than they were before. And I get it. Sponsorship is a necessity for YouTube. And that's just how it works. That's fine. But the amount of sponsors have changed. Also probably scaling with Donut. Once again, this isn't, sponsorships aren't my forte as much as corporate buyouts are. But I think what's going on is they're now pushing their videos to be more of a sponsorship video and to cater now towards sponsorships rather than, hey, let's go build a car in the driveway. That'd be dope, which it was. Loved it. Loved all the Money Pit episodes. Thought they were great. But now, like I said, they're kind of shifting over towards a little more specific sponsorships and things like that. So will it get better? I don't want to be pessimistic. And I'll still watch Donut and everything like that. Still a great show. Still a great channel. Love you guys. But I don't think this is going to change. And since the ink is already dried up on all the papers, everything's good to go, everything's legit, solid, I don't think it's going to go back to how it was. Which, that's what happens. That's what happens with corporate buyouts. Everybody says that the corporate guys say, once again, this is kind of inside baseball. The corporate guys will say, we don't want to change anything. We don't want to change the way you guys do things. We don't want to change, the products you use. And I've seen firsthand what would happen is usually that they'll pick you up and they'll kind of sit in the shadows and watch and see how you do things now that you've been acquired. They already know your past information. You've already given them years and years of paperwork. So they know how you have worked before. Now they sit and watch you to see how you do now, and then they start to make changes. For example, we can talk about an orthopedic clinic. So let's say that, just for fun, that this clinic was using a certain company for their knee replacements. Loved it. Everything was great. They've been doing those knee replacements with those products for, 20 years, let's say, for fun. They've been using those products for 20 years. They love them. They know how they work. And in the negotiations, they would bring up and say, hey, we want to keep using these products. Is that a problem? And I've heard this firsthand. Like I said, this is what I do. This is what I do for a living. I've heard the people in these corporate structures saying, yeah, you can keep doing, you can keep using what you want to use. We don't want to change what you're going to use. But we do have a higher buying power, which means we can then get you cheaper stuff, which means we then can change these things if we see fit. But right now, we don't think that we're going to do that. So that was all just kind of word of mouth, just kind of keeping you happy. But in the contract, it'll say that they can change anything at any time, and they do. It usually takes a couple years. As soon as you're in bed with them, it usually takes a couple years for them to actually go back and say, okay, we know that you like doing this product, but we found that if you use this product that we get a discount on, it'll save you, 5% a year, 10% a year on costs, which is now their savings for their company. So they will change it. And I've seen it happen before. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen people say, oh, you're good. We're not going to change anything. It's fine. We're not going to change it. Don't worry about it. But if we have to, we will. And they've done it. And I've seen them do it the whole time. So with this whole corporate thing, I can see how they just sit there in the corner and say, yeah, do the videos you want to do. Do whatever you want to do. It's fine. Not a problem. And then a few years later, hey, you guys should do more sponsorship videos because it brings us in more money. Do it. And if you don't like it, see you later. And that's what's starting to happen. It's taken, 2 or 3 years. And I've seen this. I hate to say it again. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen it happen. I've talked to people. This has happened to them. That's just how it works. And I'm not saying that corporate is the devil. I'm not saying that they're the worst, but I am saying that this is what happens. This is what's going on. And I understand, the owners selling the corporate, making their lives a lot easier, than making a ton of money. I get it. But as soon as you open up Pandora's box, you have to do whatever they tell you to do. So I really hope Donut gets back to what they were doing for fun, how they felt they should do it. They do what they want to do. We all loved it. It's great. But I think that once that corporate is starting to tell them what to do and they do it, I think it's kind of a slippery slope. So I'm not sure what the future is going to be for Donut. Once again, I haven't seen their paperwork. I don't know. This is all just speculation on something that I see quite often. So this is just a guess. But I really hope that it might be that everybody has to leave Donut and they start a new company. And then Donut then gets sold again, just like Car Throttle was sold twice, 2019, 2023. That might be what has to happen. Donut might have to be sold a few different times, but I really hope that everybody who was in Donut, who was friends, can then gather together and start a new channel. Very similar to that whole, Top Gear debacle, where the trio of them, well, as soon as Jeremy got kicked out, then the trio left. They started their own thing, and it was so much better. Everything was fantastic. They made so much more money. Everybody was more happy. I think that might be what has to happen with these larger YouTube channels that grew up by themselves without that much outside money, with no corporate money, just sponsorships. And then corporate swooped in, took them away, and we'll see what happens. But I hope it's all good. I'm not going to hold my breath. Hope it works out. And hope we can get back to watching what we normally like to watch. Otherwise, until then, let's see what that new Donut channel has with Zach on it. Let's see what those guys are going to do. I know that I've been watching them, these past couple of days. I'm watching their subscribers explode, and that's great. I want to see that going. I want to see that explode, because I want to see what they have to do, because this is what Donut used to be. This is what they said they wanted to do at Donut, and they were doing at Donut until they got told otherwise. So let's see how it goes. Thanks for watching, guys. What do you think? Am I way off base? I just kind of was rambling on. What do you think? Is there hope? Not sure. You tell me. Make sure to subscribe if this is something that you enjoyed. And there's more ramblings to come. Don't you worry. Bye.